Thank you everybody for joining us this evening. This is the current student female panel. I'm going to let our female students introduce themselves. I'm going to start with Amrita.
Hi everyone, my name is Amrita. I'm currently in my 4th year of the biophysics program at York.
Thank you. And Coral?
Yep. Hi, everyone. My name is Coral, and I am also in my 4th year of biophysics at York, too.
Thank you. And Laura?
Hello, I'm Laura. I'm in my 3rd year of my PhD in applied math at York.
Great. And Ariba?
Hey, everyone. My name is Ariba, and I'm in my 3rd year of biomedical science here at York.
And Darnella?
Hi folks, my name is Darnella and I'm in my 4th year of chemistry at York.
Great, and Maureen?
Hi, I'm Maureen. I'm in my 2nd year of the neuroscience program and of course at York.
Okay, and Victoria?
Hi, I'm Victoria. I'm in my 4th year of biomedical science here at York.
And last but definitely not least, Ganor?
Hi all, my name is Gurnor. I'm currently finishing up my master's in molecular bio at York, and I completed my undergrad at York as well in biomedical sciences.
Great, thank you. We'd like to thank you all for joining us this evening. The first question we have is, what about science excites you? Who would like to go first? Maureen?
I'll go first. So what excites me about science is that science is the method of discovery. It is how we find out new things. And that's super cool. Like, that's really exciting. It's sort of like, you know, there's all the stuff we don't know in whatever part of science you're a part of. And you do some sciencing and you have the answer. And that's really exciting.
Thank you, Maureen. Reba?
So what excites me about science is just like being fascinated about what I'm learning. Like sometimes I'm just sitting in class and I'm just like to my friends, that's so cool. And they're like, girl, be quiet. Like you're such a nerd. But honestly, just being able to like learn topics that I'm truly fascinated about and being like, how did those researchers even figure that out? Like in a lot of my 3rd year classes, we're learning about those like ancient like experiments that like, you know, taught us like, for example, the structure of DNA, like those, you know, like milestone experiments. And I'm just sitting here like, how did they think of that? Like one day I just want to be able to make contributions to the scientific community. So definitely like just seeing how how research works, how scientists are able to think of all these crazy things to get the answers that they want, like all the problem solving that goes into it. So just being able to study something that I'm truly passionate about, just to sum up my answer.
Great, thank you, Reba. Coral?
Just to add on to these really good points so far, I'd have to say what excites me the most about science is definitely the interdisciplinary nature of it that we see today. Many of the current problems that we're facing are at the interface of physics, chemistry, and biology. The program I'm in really focuses on weaving those things together, and I think it's really great when you're maybe in a biology class and you know something from physics and you can see how it helps you understand it at a deeper, more fundamental level. And I think with that, it also means that science is just heavily, there's a lot of collaboration involved. You're going to be working with all sorts of experts, and that's both really fun, it's enlightening and exciting, and it's a great way to learn so many different skills outside of what you are probably an expert in yourself.
Great, thank you. Laura?
My answer echoes Coral's answer. I love the fact that science is so interdisciplinary, especially as a mathematician. I don't just do math. I get to learn about biology, physics, and chemistry as well. And as someone who loves learning and loves learning new things and loves all the sciences, I just think it's such a great opportunity to be able to do all of these things at the same time and to work with so many different great people in science.
Great, thank you. Victoria, you would like to add to that?
Yeah, going off of what Maureen said about just like discovery as well, I think that science has so much to learn from, and you know, it just keeps delving deeper every time. And it's so funny because when you start off in your first year, you know, you kind of start off with like mitosis, glycolysis, and that was kind of like my idea of like biology or even in chemistry, you know, you think of chemical bonds and something very simple, but then now like in my fourth year, there's just so much that is added every single year. And now I'm learning about, you know, like genomics and biotechnology, and there's so much more than just, you know, the simple things that you think you know. So when you think you know everything, you actually don't. There's so much more.
Great. Darnella.
Yeah, just like everybody else, my what excites me about science really ties in with everybody else's. I just want to say that as a curious person, always looking for answers by nature, science really helped pinpoint certain chemical reactions that happen on day-to-day basis. I could walk around the world and see why certain things happen, and that's pretty cool. Instead of like, you know, overthinking that, why is this happening? So science really helps, you know, pinpoint these processes down. And yeah, that's what excites me about science.
Great, those are all great answers. I have another question that kind of goes off of like what excites you about science. A student would like to know what inspired you to pursue a degree in science? And then I'm gonna add another question that kind of goes hand in hand with that. Is there a woman in your life that has inspired you to pursue this this path? Reba?
Yeah, so for me, I didn't always know that I wanted to go in science. Like just thinking back to like middle school, elementary school, like even grade 9, I used to love reading as a kid. And at one point I used to say like I want to be an author. Like I thought that, I don't know, I was like really strong in English classes. But then later, I think it was grade 10 science where I realized that I wanted to pursue science, because grade 11 is that time where you're like choosing if you want to take continue sciences, right? In my grade 10 science class, my teacher just like her passion rubbed off on us. And I remember like, what do we even learn at that point? Like we learned mitosis, like what organelles do, but it's just the way she delivered that information. And I was like, it's so cool how all these like parts are like interconnected. And I just like really enjoy that class. And that really inspired me to continue taking sciences. And then I just want to say like in my Bio 1000 class, like when I was in first year, I had Dr. Nivolak as my professor, and she also just confirmed for me that I'm really passionate about biology. Like I love that class so much. And like ever since, I really love my bio classes, but I also really love chemistry. So again, like I like when it's interdisciplinary, and I like when I could apply other sciences to understand biology. And my research position is actually in chemical biology, and like I love my project. But again, like I love the interdisciplinary nature of it. But that's kind of how I was confirmed that I love science and specifically biology. And a woman that kind of continues to inspire me, I would say, is like a real life example of the graduate student I work with. So when I was going in for my first day as an NSERC USRI student, I was so nervous. Like I can't even describe how nervous I was like during that car ride, because I just thought like, what if they expect me to know things like I don't? But from the moment I met her, I felt so much better. Like she's such a great mentor and like such a great teacher, and she never made me feel bad about making mistakes. And she's really open about like times that she's made mistakes or like setbacks she's had, and just like she like makes me realize it's okay to make mistakes, and like inspires me like every day basically. Like I want to be as like good of a scientist as her one day basically.
Great, thank you, Reba. It's nice to hear when our female professors and TAs, for example, are inspiring young women. And Amrita.
So one reason I really wanted to take science as I grew up was since I was a kid, I was really very connected to nature and how it worked and everything. Because like since I was a kid, I would go up to my granddad and ask how like the leaves were like growing, or like how everything was just occurring around us. I was very inquisitive as a kid. So that was like one of the main reasons why I felt like I would be really good in science, which not to flex, I really am good at science. So I really enjoy it. And I actually have 3 women who have inspired me to be in the science field right now. One's like my grandmom, who also was with my granddad explaining about everything. Like they used to have a earthworm garden and everything. So I used to go and just like learn everything as a kid about earthworms and just gardening and just all that biology about plants. The second person is my physics teacher in grade 11 and 12. She was really inspirational. She really was very passionate about teaching physics. And that's one of the reasons why I chose biophysics right now. And the third person is my first year biology professor, Tamara Kelly. She also taught me genetics and she also taught me reproduction. That's how much I love her. She's really inspirational and I absolutely will take another course with her. And she made me love biology even more. So these are three women.
Great, thank you. Tamara Kelly is a great professor, great woman, and never stopped being curious. So thank you for that story. And Maureen.
Yeah, so I guess my sort of science journey started, I was in 5th grade and I read a lot of books and I read like some YA dystopian series where at the end you find out that everything that happened to them was actually all like curated by scientists to like test their brains. And I was like, oh my gosh, you can do that. I want to do that. I want to study brains. And it stuck because here we are. Yeah, and then I guess women who've inspired me along the way is literally every single woman in science that I meet. Like I go to chem lab and I meet my TA and I'm like, oh my gosh, she's so cool. Like I want to be her. Every single time I start a course, even like sitting here, like Nora's like in the lab. And I'm like, that's so cool. Like, can't wait for that to be me.
Thank you. I like to point out your shirt, by the way. We've had quite a few comments. Women belong in science. Great choice for the evening.
Yeah,
so
I was like, I have the perfect shirt for tonight.
Thank you. And Ganor.
Yeah, so I think this event is like perfect. So I actually went to an all-girls public high school when I was in high school. And from the beginning, the culture there was just completely different from a normal high school. It was all about just women uplifting other women. And I feel like they really pushed me to kind of discover things that I wouldn't have normally discovered. And one of those things was just research. From the beginning, I knew that I wanted to do research, like right from the get-go. My dad was like, no, you should probably do medical school. But I entered my first year and I was like, I want to get into research, like I'm determined. And I started emailing a lot of professors and I somehow managed to get in. And I was like, wow, I love this. And this is kind of exactly what I want to do. And I feel like just having a good supportive network of women around you always uplifts you. It challenges you to seek more and grow more because, you know, we're all here and we all want to kind of go up together. There's nobody like pulling anybody else down. And I think women that have inspired me are honestly, every single woman that I meet and that I have a conversation with, I'm always inspired and they're always so amazing because I always learn something new from everyone. But I think right now, my role model is Dr. Imogen Coe. So she does go back and forth between Ryerson and York, but she is an amazing professor who I think she also mentors Dr. Tamara Kelly. And they're all of the women are connected. And she does a lot of stuff about bringing inclusivity to STEM, bringing diversity to STEM. How do we uplift people of color, Black and Indigenous folks in STEM as well? So she's definitely my role model right now.
Thank you. It's great to hear so many lovely things about our professors tonight and how they've inspired a lot of you that I've heard from so far. So thank you. And Darnella.
So my science journey and why I chose science. Growing up as a kid, I was always interested in puzzles. And this one instance where my mom's laptop stopped working and I kid you not, I have no idea how I did it, but I was so determined to like fix it. And I got it fixed. I got it fixed to the point where the screen was working. And my mom was like, you're going to go into engineering. So I was supposed to be in engineering, but things happened. I used to go to coding camps and, you know, and all of that fun stuff. But then I realized it wasn't really my passion. Even though I liked puzzles, I still wasn't interested in like engineering. So then I did a STEM program before I started high school. And then I didn't really know what I liked because I liked every single aspect of life. Like I was into arts, I was into every different thing that you could think of. I don't know. And then in grade 11, I finally decided I wanted to I was interested in chemistry because I felt like that really stuck with me. So this is why I decided to come into chemistry. And I do not regret it one bit, because chemistry is like a puzzle. Like it ties back to reasons why I love puzzles. And like chemical mechanisms, it's literally like a puzzle piece to me, and it excites me to this day. And yeah, and a woman that inspired me is this girl who's 1 year older than me. And I was in this program in high school, the IB program, and she was a woman of color, and she was able to get accepted into Yale, Harvard, and Stanford, all three of the big Ivy Leagues in the US. And we were going to high school in Toronto, and I didn't fathom how like this girl could be so amazing. And I'm just like, wow, like having that representation, like a woman of color, like it really helped motivate me to be like, you know what, I could do it too. And that's why I'm here today.
Great, thank you, Darnella. You definitely hit on a good point about a lot of students younger in high school are unsure of what they want to do in their postgrad or in post-secondary. And so it's great to kind of try different courses while you're in high school, and also know that you can come into university as like a basic science. If you love sciences, but you're not sure what one, you could do an undecided and then move to one that sticks out more to you in your second year. So never feel like you're stuck, and definitely explore the different sciences that interest you. So great point to bring up there, Darnella. Laura?
Hello. So when I was younger, I always knew I loved math. As in, I was one of those nerds who saw algebra for the first time and was like, this is so cool. Like, I just want to do things like this all the time. And then I guess as I progressed through like secondary school or high school, as Darnella said, I just thought everything was really interesting, and I just didn't know how to choose a course to fit everything in. And because of like guidance and things like that, I ended up going and doing an undergrad in actuarial math. And after, I'd say 2 years, I knew it wasn't really what I wanted to do. So somebody advised me to do a master's, and I did this master's in applied math. And this was my first exposure to seeing math being used to solve real world problems, and doing like mathematical biology or geoscience. And that was when I knew this is for me. This is just so cool, and you can do so many different things with the same skills, and you know, you get to learn new things all the time. So I was just so inspired by this. And I guess in terms of role models, the teachers I had in high school were just amazing. My physics teacher and my maths teacher were so inspiring, and their passion for teaching and for their subjects really made me excited and made me want to pursue this type of career.
Great, thank you, Laura. And last but not least, Victoria.
Okay, so I guess my kind of story was when I was in grade 10, I remember I went to the optometrist's office as a normal eye exam, and I was just in love and so interested about the human eye and vision. And I kind of thought, this might be something that I wanted to do. Obviously, I kind of thought that science, going into the sciences would be really helpful in this case. So that's why I kind of geared my degree towards science. And optometry is just such an interdisciplinary field, in the sense that you have biology, physics, chemistry, like there's so many anatomy, so many aspects to it. And so that was kind of something that I knew, and I kind of worked myself towards it. And thankfully next year I will be getting my doctor of optometry. So I'm really happy that I kind of pushed through, and it was definitely along the way, there's a lot of learning from all teachers in all aspects. And it's kind of just, I knew that science was definitely something that I had a passion for, and now I can kind of apply it to a specific part of the human body, which is really cool. So definitely along the way, learning and inspiring from women. Any of my profs that were women were amazing. Like they just had this energy to them that I feel like not all profs had, and it was really inspiring. And also I currently work in an optometrist office, and it's all women. So I work with all these women doctors that are so powerful and passionate, and it's really eye-opening for me. And, I'm hoping to get there one day as well.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. Those were all great answers. I feel like I know you all a lot more after listening to each of your responses. So thank you. Our next question is, have you faced adversity as a woman in science throughout high school or your current degree? If so, how have you overcome it? I'll let you guys think on it for a moment. I know it is very lengthy. Yeah, Reba?
So I would kind of like to take a specific type of approach to this question. So I think the worst type of adversity we can go through sometimes is like being too self-critical on ourselves. And it might be like some external factors that make us that way, like especially as women in science. But I think the sooner you realize it, the more you can address it. Because I realized, like, just me personally, like I had some really bad tendencies of like whenever I make a mistake, like I'm way too critical on myself, or like trying to like set my expectations too high. But just like learning that it's totally okay to make mistakes. And also, I guess like sometimes it's easy to think that if we're achieving things, or if people are looking at us like in a certain way, like even just thinking that we're smart, like sometimes it's easy to start thinking like that's not necessarily true, and just like kind of having those self-doubts. Like if other people are complimenting, you're like, why do they really think that? Like you have your own self-doubts, right? So just like recognizing that. And I feel like once you start recognizing those patterns that you're kind of doing that, and like you purposely make an effort to kind of say positive affirmations and stop saying those type of things like, oh, I don't think I can do this. Like, I think I'm going to fail at this. Like, not saying that intentionally, making yourself say positive things instead, it can actually really help. And I think, yeah, just recognizing that being too self-critical, especially as a woman in science, I think that's one of the worst adversities we can put ourselves through, just criticizing ourselves too much.
Great, thank you. Coral.
Yeah, so this can be, I guess, a bit of a sensitive question. I would say, reflecting on maybe my experiences more in high school, I didn't have the most outstanding experience, at least in physics, when I did it in high school. And I guess traditionally physics doesn't see as many women go into it, but that's definitely changing now. So, which is great. But I do remember that I had a teacher that was particularly harsh on me for maybe not understanding things immediately and things like that. There was definitely a bias, and unfortunately sometimes it's something that can happen, and it can be very discouraging, and it can definitely knock down your confidence a peg. But the way I found that I could overcome it was by building a strong network just of my friends, both like women and not, but and for that, it was something that I felt really bolstered my confidence a lot, being able to work with people that I knew on topics and problems and getting better at solving them and being just more outspoken and more assertive. And I felt like it was great that it did a complete 180 in university. My physics experiences in university have been very, very good. I have a strong network of peers. We're very supportive. We always help each other. And I feel like just, of course, those issues of confidence are still there, and it takes a lot of time to kind of break those things down. But the best part is, or not the best part, sorry, the best thing you can do is to be aware of it and to acknowledge it. And again, fight back with positive thoughts. You have to be confident in your skills, and really you have to empower yourself. So that's what I would say on the matter.
Great, thank you, Coral. Maureen.
Yeah, so a lot like Coral said, this question is very individual and it can be sensitive. It's also, quite layered, and everyone's going to have their own, I guess, answer to it and experience with it. For myself personally, sort of like Coral's experience, it was mostly in high school that I saw some sort of like, oh, like you're going into science kind of attitudes. I went to high school in a small town, sort of like 2.5 hours north of Toronto. So definitely a different mindset than there are in bigger communities. And I definitely had usually male teachers. They'd be like, oh, like, what are you thinking of doing? I'd be like, neuroscience. Like, I'd say like full confidence, right? And they'd be like, oh, that's very competitive, you know, like that's really hard. It's a lot of work. Are you sure? And I just kind of look at them and be like, yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, like Carl said, you have to come to terms with it yourself, I think, and having that support system is really, really important, of friends and peers and your family, or maybe not, whatever works for you. And building that, it can be tricky to build. You definitely have to be aware of who you're surrounding yourself with. But of course it's doable. You just got to say, no, like, I'm doing this. I love this. I'm going to do it. It doesn't matter what you think, I'm doing it. Yeah, so it can be tough at times, but definitely it changes. If any of you had any experiences like that in high school, the environment's very different in university, as I have found, others have found, especially at York. York is like super open, super supportive. I've not had a bad experience at all in university.
Great, thank you. And Gunor.
So I know often when we talk about adversity as women in science, we kind of look at it as a very sensitive topic. But I realized as a graduate student and just being at York in science for so many years, like the environment at York is really different. It really motivates you and supports you. But we need to talk about adversity because, you know, we learn from each other. How do women battle adversity? How do we overcome it? Like, what is somebody else doing that's different that you can look at and be like, hey, I can do that too, and I can overcome it with that. So that's like how I always feel about adversity. It's important to talk about it. That being said, I think I've like everything that Coral and like Maureen have talked about. It's the same thing, like this idea of, are you sure you want to go into this? It's competitive. Like, these are things that we as women always have to hear, and our male counterparts often don't get a lot of this, right? I think the best way to overcome it is always make your accomplishments visible. I had to learn this the hard way. Sometimes I feel like as women, we have this idea that if I'm like showing everyone what I'm doing, you feel like a show off. But I feel like when we are often compared to male members, whether that's in physics, math, biology, or even chemistry, we always need to like beat our drum 10 times louder and be like, see, I'm also doing something here too. And it deserves more attention than what you're doing. So always, I think, make your accomplishments visible. Don't ever be scared to apply for any awards or scholarships because, you know, people just apply for them. You never know when you're going to get something, and you might be more deserving than somebody else at the end of the day. So always just have confidence in yourself and know that you can overcome anything. Adversity is not that difficult. And if you ever run into an obstacle that you yourself can't ever, like, you don't know what to do, you're confused, you're backed into a corner, you know, talk to other women. You probably know somebody who's gone through something very, very similar. So, you know, keep the conversation open at the end of the day. And York does an amazing, York really, really supports women in science. We have women in a lot of upper administrative positions, and it just helps so much. Like, I can email my graduate program director and be like, hey, I had this thought, what were you thinking about this? And she responds like within a day or two, and she tells me how it was for her when she was in graduate school. So all of those connections are really, really helpful and absolutely amazing for women that, well, we will face adversity, but we'll also overcome it together.
Great, thank you. Ariba, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add one quick comment. I think one of the things that I'm the most tired of hearing, and it's kind of like bouncing off of what everyone is saying here, but when you tell people your future career plans, like if you say you potentially want to like pursue like a PhD, and then they hit you with like, but don't you kind of want a life? Like, don't you want kids one day? And especially, I feel like it's a cultural thing. When people say that to you, I feel like that's my least favorite question. And I feel like when you keep hearing it, you start like thinking like, what, is it that hard? Like, can I not do both of those things? So I feel like when you're sharing your goals that you have with people as a woman, and they kind of like hit you with that response, and you'd be surprised, sometimes it's even just people in undergrad with you, So I feel like that really like makes you doubt if you can do that. And I think in those moments, it's important to look at other women mentors, like look at them as mentors and kind of get inspired by them. Because I think it's no one should be telling us that we can't do everything that we want to do, especially because no one would ask a man that. So I just wanted to add that to this whole conversation because I think that's my least favorite comment that I've ever gotten. And I get that a lot. I think all of us do.
Great, thank you, Reba. That's a good point. I think women definitely hear that a lot more than men. Men don't get that question. So thank you for adding that. The next question kind of gonna go off scholarship, which kind of Gunor touched on a little bit. Do you believe women have equal opportunities for scholarships and research opportunities at York? Marie.
Yeah, so I would say absolutely it's equal. I have not experienced anything where it has not been equal. For example, like in high school, I applied for the YSSA award, which is a undergraduate award. Like you apply for in high school, you get it after your first year of university in the Faculty of Science at York. And it's a research position, or it includes a research position in the summer after your first year. And it's really competitive. I was a recipient and it was super cool. And even in the lab, it was a big lab. It was pretty advanced. I was like, what am I doing here? But, there was a good mix of men and women in like graduate positions in like throughout the lab. It was a good mix. The other award recipients, I think were actually mostly girls. So that was really cool. But definitely for sure at York, it's equal. Like, yeah, you apply for anything you're interested in.
Great, thank you. Thanks for mentioning the YSSA. Towards the end, I'll put a link in the chat where you can get more information on that scholarship, as the due date will be coming up in March. So if you're interested, please go to the website and learn more about it. You'll also find some other ways to connect with us in that website. Cora.
Yeah, I thought I would build off of that from the research side of things. So I'm someone who's kind of hopped from project to project throughout my undergrad, just because, I really wanted to find out what I was most interested in, and that's the way to do that is to explore. But what I'll say is that I feel like there is very great opportunity for women to get research positions. And what it really comes down to is just knocking on people's doors, whether I guess by email or actually, which is a bit hard to do now that, well, we are going back in person, but you know what I mean. And to figure out what's being offered. And professors, they like to see your interest in the project, your passion, and also a bit of your background as well in terms of what kinds of courses that you've taken, for example, to see if you're a good fit. But it really comes down to just seeing what's being offered by professors, what's available to do, and by talking and emailing, which I think is what Gunor had talked about a bit earlier. And the nice thing about York is that there's also a lot of opportunities to do paid research as well, either through student awards like NSERC, I think that was mentioned before, or like part-time positions, and even opportunities outside of York, which are often advertised through your department and things like that. So again, I think something important is that even if you don't feel fully qualified, apply anyway, because you never know, you might get it. And I had even done a research project myself where I didn't have all the skills necessarily, and I was honest about that with my supervisor, but she saw that I was so interested in learning and pursuing the work, and that got me in, and I made great progress for the project itself. So again, I think it comes down to just know what you're worth and the skills that you have, and there's a lot of opportunities out there. You just have to go looking.
Great, thank you. Laura?
So just to echo what Maureen and Corel said, I think opportunities for women in obtaining scholarships have definitely improved a lot over the last few years. I think if you want something, definitely go and apply for it, because you do have a shot. Everyone has a shot. And like one particular example would be, I was involved with supervising some undergrads for a research project last year, and in the group of undergrads that I was supervising, all three of them were women. So they had all got this opportunity to do research. So, you know, basically just go for it. If you're interested, you definitely have a shot.
Great. Thank you for all the advice, everybody. So the next question is, what does being a woman in science mean to you? I'll let you guys think on it a little bit. Oh, Marie?
Yeah, I like this question. I think this is really, it's a good question. Being a woman in science means to me showing everyone else that women are just as capable in any room you go into, in any lab you walk into, in any lecture hall you are in. It means, you know, being able to represent a group of people who previously were underrepresented, are still underrepresented, but being able to work towards that equality and proper diversity in spaces that have previously been very undiverse. It's sort of, you know, advancing it so that those who come after us are able to do even better things and flourish even more than we could think possible.
Great, thank you. Darnella?
Being a woman in science to me honestly means that I have a privilege that a lot of people don't have or didn't have. Women have fought so hard to come where we are, and I believe the opportunities that we are given in today's day and age is amazing compared to the opportunities we were given back 50 years ago. And being a woman in science also means that I can assure my future, or assure our future as for the other young girls who want to be in science, or young women who want to be in science. Also being a person of color, really, there is representation there where people could look up to me and be like, if she could do it, I could do it too. And that's honestly my goal. And yeah, that's the importance of it to me.
Great response, Darnella. Amartha?
So being a woman in science, I want to remove the little factor that's there in the society where people get intimidated by the fact that women are in science. So as a woman in science, I just want to be there. And as all folks have already said, it's changed so much over the past few years. Hopefully, all of us being women in science can change that and remove the society's thought of like women being in science, just remove that intimidation that they feel. So I hope we can change that in the upcoming years.
Great, thank you. Ganor?
Just to echo what Darnella said, because I really loved what you said. It was exactly what I was about to say, that, you know, we have an amazing privilege to like have the freedom to come to, you know, we'll be in Canada, study whatever we want, whether that's biology, chemistry, or physics. And it's not something that a lot of women across the world even have access to, or even if they're not even allowed to pursue STEM at like many different opportunities, where many different levels is the right way. To this day, there's still a massive gender gap within STEM researchers. And I think being a woman, we need to understand that this gap exists, and we should be trying our best to kind of prove that like we deserve a seat at the table at the end of the day. You know, we are just as competent as a lot of our other counterparts. You know, we can do things, sometimes we can do them even better at the end of the day. You know, we're more, like, you're creative and, you know, you're amazing. So I think being a woman in science is hard, but at the same time, it's a very rewarding experience.
Great, thank you. Victoria?
This is actually something that I learned in my biochemistry course. So I'm not sure if you guys have heard of the Michaelis-Menten equation, but Maud Menten, who is half of the equation, Michaelis being the man, and she actually was studying at U of T, and to further go into her research, they wouldn't allow her because she was a woman. And I think that right now, being a woman in science presently is kind of like us being able to represent the women who couldn't. And I think that every year, I just feel like we have new milestones and we're just learning new things. And I think that right now, I'm just, like Gurner said and everyone else, that it's just a really like prideful thing to have now that we get to be the ones to kind of take whatever wasn't able to be, pursued before, and now we're kind of running with it presently.
So what Victoria said, like literally hit the nail on what I was gonna say. And by the way, we literally just covered that in my advanced biochem class too, like that whole situation there. So that really stuck with me too. But just being a woman in science. So like a lot of the times when we're looking at those historical experiments we cover in all of our courses, we see so many names of guys. And even currently, as Gurner was saying, there's still that discrepancy. Sometimes we do hear about these guy names more who are these like big successful researchers. They're just more coming up more frequently. So I think being a woman in science right now is contributing to the next generation of scientists who other people will talk about and who other people will, even just at lab meetings, people will share findings from different labs, and just being one of other and more amazing women whose names just comes up more and more, and making contributions that are meaningful. And like the girl who came up with CRISPR, like I look up to her a lot. So I just feel like being a woman in science is just adding to that pool of amazing women, and that's what it means to me.
Great, thank you. Gunnar, did you want to add to?
Yeah,
Okay.
what Ariba said just reminded me of something. So one thing so there's this amazing professor at York. Her name is Dawn Baisley. She's a plant bio researcher, and she really is into like understanding the history of women that have been involved in a lot of scientific discoveries. So there's something that we all do at York in like I think it's around March, around when International Women's Day happens, and we kind of have a Wikipedia-thon where we start and we fill in bios of underrepresented female scientists around the world. And this is something that like was started at York by Dawn Baisley, and it's such an amazing initiative. And it's really about like showing that like, it's great that we're also women in science, but let's try to like find and dig up all of these old women researchers from the past who had contributed to the field, and their contributions had kind of gone a little bit, they've been swept under the rug, if you will. And events like this are so amazing to bring back this representation that women have always been in the field of STEM. It's not like we're like now we're in the field. We've had such a long history of contribution, and it's really important for all of us as women to recognize the contribution of women in the past. So I thought I would plug that in. It's such an amazing day, and honestly, if you come to York and you take part in this Wikipedia-thon, it's amazing. It's like we're all in the computer lab, like doing it together. It's great. It's one of my favorite things to do.
Great, Gunnar. I had no idea. So that sounds like a good time. So thank you for sharing that. We're going to kind of step away from, like, not too much away from, how you feel as women in science. We have some students that would like to know what your aspirations are after your degree. I see your hand up, Gunnar, but it might be from last time, so I don't know. It's okay. Who would like to start? Marie?
Yeah, so I'll start. I don't know, my philosophy is, just aim super high. And you know what, if it doesn't happen, then something else will happen. So my like big aspiration is to do an MD, PhD dual degree and be a little researcher and a little doctor, but together. And I think that'll be super fun. Specifically, I'm into neuro. I like brains, something brain sciencey, brain medicine, cool stuff.
Great, thank you. Yes, dream big. Everyone should do it. So thank you, Maureen. And Gunnar?
So my aspirations have like I always knew I wanted to do research. It was something that I've been interested in from the beginning. And I actually think I might just do a PhD in the future as well. But my aspirations have kind of like taken a little bit, I don't want to say it's like a U-turn, but people always ask me like, why are you doing this now? But I'm actually thinking about going to law school to kind of understand the policies that are really in place behind a lot of our scientific communication, how we dispense research funding and all of that stuff, I really want to understand the policy for allowing research and innovation to happen. So I think I will be applying to law school. I mean, it might come back and do a PhD one day because I still love molecular biology, but it's completely okay to, you know, start a field and kind of discover something new that you might want to do. I didn't really realize I would be interested in policy until I've attended a few conferences at York and also at other universities. And I realized that policy is such a big component of science. So it's okay, you know, to kind of like take a little deviation. It's completely fine. Thank you.
Great, thank you. To add to that, not all of our students go to medical school. We do have quite a few that go to law school and various other professions. So thank you, Gunor, for letting everyone know that you don't have to stick to just a science. There is opportunities out there. And Corel.
So for me, I, again, had to do quite a bit of exploring in my undergrad. I actually didn't come in knowing exactly which major I wanted to do. That's a whole separate story, but I did quite a bit of research, and similarly to Gunor, I discovered that that's just something I really, really enjoy. And in particular now, I am in love with light responsive materials. I can't get enough of them. I was literally like freaking out when I saw a whole chemical cabinet of them in the past summer, which I think told me something. But that's something I really enjoyed. And I am now hoping to pursue my master's with the same supervisor I worked with in the past summer on those materials. And I just really love biophotonics in general and just how light interacts with things and how we can use that to gain information at the molecular scale. I think that's just super exciting and very interdisciplinary. I've been able to work with lots of different people, and that's something that I want to do going forward. So I wanted to continue pursuing education at a higher level. I'm in love with learning. Maybe that sounds a little bit cheesy, but it's just something that I can't get enough of. And I do see myself in an academic setting. I absolutely love communicating science and attending conferences and speaking about it and getting other people really excited about the research that's happening today. It's such a fulfilling feeling to be able to talk to others and see their eyes light up when you introduce them to something new, and being able to just, you know, make that little incremental progress or even big progress. It depends, varies from day to day, but that's just something I can't get enough of. And that's where I see myself heading.
Great, thank you. Gunor, you want to add to that?
Yeah, like I think in general, York offers so many opportunities to you to explore. Like we have so many clubs for so many different things. And then even professors, we have so many professors that do research on so many different things. Like just in my undergrad alone, I was in 3 different labs and we did like thermodynamic research. And then another one, we did protein. We studied the structures of protein. And like in the last lab that I did my honors thesis in, we were doing like cardiovascular physiology. So, you know, there's a lot of different things. You feel free to like jump in and dabble wherever you want. Don't ever fix yourself or narrow into one spot. You know, the world is your oyster at York. Just feel free to explore and do what you want to do.
Great, thank you, everybody. So we have a student wondering, how much did you guys know about the science field growing up? Was it something that maybe was very predominant in your family? Did you have another woman in your life who was in sciences? Or was it just simply something you came across on your own? Laura?
So I think that a lot of the time for me when I was growing up, there was not enough information about the different career options that are available to someone who wants to pursue science. I think that you assume you can do things like teaching or I don't know, I guess I'm coming at it from a math perspective, but for me it was teaching or actuary. And then as you go further into STEM, you see there's so many different things you can do. Like science comes into everything. And I think that's something that I'm quite passionate about, is trying to raise awareness for the different opportunities that are available from pursuing these types of careers or courses in college. So yeah, it's not advertised well enough. And it's something that I think we all need to do as a science community.
Great, thank you, Laura. And Maureen.
Yeah, so I guess growing up, I didn't have a huge exposure to science. Like both my parents did go to university, but they were more in like economics and journalism and stuff, so like social sciences. And I don't think actually anyone else in my family is in science or STEM even. So it was just me reading my books and finding out you could, or this is like a fiction book. It was like a YA, like dystopian future book. The Maze Runner, if any of you have read or watched The Maze Runner. I was like, wow, you can manipulate brains. And then I started Googling stuff and I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually real. And we're here now. So definitely, if any of you are a little nervous thinking, oh, like, you know, I don't know anyone in science, no one in my family's in science, maybe none of your friends are considering science, you're feeling sort of like, what is this? It is for you, but I will also say that it is huge. And there is so much more that happens in science and all year now. Like there are so many jobs and like different niches to be a part of that like you just sort of come across as you further in the field.
Great, thank you. And Darnella.
Just like Laura said, I don't believe science is advertised heavily. Growing up, it's like I'm aware that science exists, and I wasn't really sure or really understood what is available. I was just going with the flow of what my mom wants, what my dad wants me to do, you know, just going with it. And when I was in middle school, I had teachers telling me, do you know this program exists? Or do you know that program exists? And I'd be like, what? No. And it's like, you wouldn't know things exist unless you knew the questions to ask. And it's sometimes hard to formulate these questions or know really what to ask because the discussion is so limited. And you also need to know who to go to. And I believe connections is one big thing when it comes to the science community, because you're not going to know nothing if you don't have people who are connected to other people who tell them things. And even to a day like today, I still kind of struggle with where to get certain opportunities from. And yeah, but now that I started networking during COVID, and it wasn't ideal, but I believe like it helped me so much. I've been further than I was before. And yeah, my advice is just to have a network team, or else you won't be exposed to what's out there.
Great, thank you. And Victoria?
For me, my family and, you know, everyone else kind of was all business oriented. Everything was very like cutthroat. There was always an answer to something. And I was always kind of had this idea in my head that science was just very hard. And that if you wanted to go into it, you know, good luck having a life, good luck, you know, doing a lot of things, because it was very, you know, difficult. And I found that also, in addition to that, it was kind of just very like narrowed. In like my high school, for example, it was like, oh, if you're going to science, you're most likely going to be a doctor. And that was kind of just what I associated science with, which honestly is not correct at all now that I know. And it's crazy because York just has so many amazing clubs that you can join, which is amazing. And I think that a great way to find what you're passionate about is kind of like getting your foot in the door and seeing, is this something I really like? And this ranges from clubs from mathematics, engineering, research specific, or anything regarding the pre-optometry, pre-dental, pre-physician assistant. It kind of goes into so many different realms and avenues. And I think that now that science is actually just a lot more than just kind of like one pathway, I think that's kind of what I originally thought it was. And, you know, as everyone else was saying, it was kind of not as advertised as something that you have so much to go into. It's kind of just, it was just very cutthroat, difficult, and this is probably what you're going to do. Meanwhile, it's actually, you have so much to do, and a great way is to just, you know, get your foot in the door and get involved.
Great, thank you, Victoria. And Ariba?
Yeah, so I think similar to a lot of us here, I don't really have anyone in my family who pursued science to kind of go off of. And in fact, I'm not only the oldest sibling in my family, but the oldest grandchild on both sides of my family. So I've always been in that place where I kind of felt like I didn't have anyone to kind of ask. I was kind of figuring out everything as I go. So like for me, a big part of figuring out what sciences is like connecting with upper year students, like connecting with older students who are currently pursuing science and getting an idea that way. As well, like I just have this really funny memory of when in first year I was trying to get a research position, trying to get involved in research. And before this, like I didn't even know what research was like at all. Like in high school, I had no idea what it entailed. And then I kind of started hearing more about it. So I was like, I really want to look into this. So the first time I had an interview, I went in to talk to my supervisor, and he asked me, he was like, I kind of summarized his abstract in my email, and he was like, so I just wanted to ask, like, do you have anyone in your family who's in science? I don't know why I kind of got that vibe from you. And for me, that was so funny because like it made me laugh because like I didn't have anyone in science. Like I just kind of always gravitated towards that myself, and like found it really interesting to read about different advisors research. I kind of think it's nice that I was able to figure out all of these questions, like how do you get a research position and everything. So now I make it like a priority to help younger students do the same thing. In various clubs, like various mentorship opportunities. Mentorship has become like a great passion of mine because I know how it's like being at the stage and like being so confused on like what resources to use, like what directions can I go. So I just love to be that person who can help out like younger girls, especially because I know how it's like not to have someone to like ask those questions too.
Great, thank you, Ruba. It is great. Most of the ladies on this panel are what we call student ambassadors. So their role is to help students who are in high school kind of navigate that transition to university. I know that Ariba is not alone. There's a lot of young women and men who are the first in their family to go to university or to do a science program. And it's great to have somebody to ask questions to who are already in that kind of area. So we are getting close to 9 o'clock. So what I'm going to do is I have one more question, and I think it's a great closing question. So if you each like to answer, that would be great. If not, don't worry about it. But before I go to that question, I would like to thank everybody who's attended tonight. These are great questions. It's been a great way to kind of get to know everybody on the panel and learn about your experiences. So thank you for sharing those with us, ladies. And so the last question is, do you have any advice for women looking to pursue their education in the sciences? Ariba.
Yeah, for sure. So I think a great piece of advice for me would be to look for mentors who you can look up to. And I remember reading, like, even like in my psychology class, that like when you see other people in a position, you kind of, and they're similar to you, they're alike to you in some way, it makes you feel like you can get there as well. So I think it's really important to like even attend events where you can look up to women and ask them questions. Like we have professors who are so inspirational and they're women, as well as even like our fellows classmates, like upper year students. So I think for me, it's always been really important to find mentors to ask, because again, like just at home, I didn't have anyone I could ask about those things specifically. So I think finding mentors who are women is a big part of it. And the second part of it is to not be scared to ask questions. And like, it's okay to admit that, like, you know, you don't get something, like you made a mistake. I feel like it's really important to be like, as a woman, you might feel like you need to like work harder to show that you're smart. And I remember I was listening to some graduate students, not just in my lab, but like a bunch of graduate students like in life sciences building. And there were girls and they were talking about like, I don't know if it's just you, but for me, like I feel like I need to work harder to like prove myself. Or like if I ask a question, it seems like a dumb question. But like they just felt like when guys ask questions, they feel more confident. They don't feel like they're gonna sound dumb or something. So I think girls definitely have that more of that hesitancy. But I think it's so important to ask questions and not feel like you need to always be like perfect all the time. So yeah, I think those two things are my greatest pieces of advice.
Great, thank you, Reba. And Darnella.
So a piece of advice that I want to share is that I believe that you need to really be passionate about the program that you're entering. Without passion, you wouldn't be able to really do anything. And if you are passionate about your program and you feel stuck, and you feel that you don't have time management skills or skills that are required for you to be successful, York does provide workshops that help build those skills. I have attended those workshops, and I can tell you that they are very helpful. And never give up. Don't look at your peers. Don't look at other people if they're doing better than you or worse than you. And do not let your grades define you, because at the end of the day, it's really about who you are as a person. And if you're interested in something, do not let anyone stop you from, from trying it out. So that's my advice.
Thank you, Darnella. And Victoria.
Yeah, going off of what Darnella said, I agree. I think passion is so important, just because, the burnout is real. If you are not 100% into it, you're going to feel like, oh, why did I do this? And I feel like it's easy to become, from other people, feeling that, oh, maybe this is something I should be doing, but, it should be your own kind of fire, your internal flame. And I also think my next advice would be, just don't be discouraged. I think a big thing is ask questions if you don't understand something, or if you're interested in something, ask questions. I think that the best way for us to learn and to discover and know more is to ask questions. And this can be regarding, anything. And I think that that's probably one of the biggest things. Even when I was in my first year, I was really kind of nervous to ask questions, and it made me feel like, oh, am I not as intelligent as someone else? But in reality, it's like, no, you just want to learn more. And I think that's a really good quality to have.
Great. Thank you, Victoria. Before I move on to Corel, I'm going to just remind everybody, I put the link to all of our upcoming events as well as our scholarships in the chat. So make sure you copy it and save it for later if you want to take a look at it. And if you have any questions or concerns after the session, you can email us at science@yorku.ca, and I'll put that in the chat as well. And Corel.
So I guess to just kind of, put everything together that's kind of been said throughout this whole thing, try to be, as active a student as you can be. Try to participate in your classes, ask questions, be very engaged, because at least for me, and I know for many other people as well, this is something that really helps you learn, and it helps you remember things. And it also sets you, it can set you apart for your professor as well. Your professor will get to know you, and it's a great way for you to get to know your peers, right? I have gotten through some of the toughest courses that I've taken by just communicating with others and engaging with others and building that community, or that little community with of friends that I have in order to get through these challenges. And the thing is that, yeah, sometimes you'll answer a question wrong, or you'll make a mistake. It's going to happen, and there's no way to avoid it. But this is the way that we learn, and this is the way that we grow. And trust me, usually when you don't get something right the first time, the process of learning it and understanding it, you will remember it for a while. It stays with you. And on this, by the same token here, also don't just keep yourself confined to the class. Also seek opportunities outside of class as well. It's so important. Join societies for your program. Join clubs. These are great ways to meet people and to really broaden your perspectives, to get more skills that are applicable everywhere. So again, just seek all the opportunities you can and try to be as active and engaged as you can be.
Great, thank you, Corel. Laura.
I would say, don't be afraid to ask questions. Don't be afraid to try new things or to reach out and ask for opportunities. I think so much of the community at York, if they get an email from a student who's interested and passionate and wants to try something, they're going to want to support you. So make sure that you seize any opportunities you can, and you try new things and explore all your curiosities.
Great, thank you, Laurel. And then Laura, sorry. And then we're going to go to Maureen.
Yeah, so I think my advice, sort of, I guess, all encompassing, is that your pathway is yours, your degree is yours, what you want to do is up to you. And I think that means, following what you want to do, finding those mentors, the peers, the support, everything like that, everything that's been said, and I think that does come with a bit of responsibility too. You are responsible for you, and you're responsible for your education. So that means, joining the club, talking to the professor, going to office hours, being active, paying a lot of money to be here. So you might as well get the most of it. And I also think that means that you need to be confident in being wrong, which was talked about. You need to be confident in that you're not always going to be right. You're not always going to know everything. And that's totally okay, because you can grow from it. It's only a problem if you let it stop you. Yeah, so really just go for it. That's my advice. Go for it.
Thank you. And Gunor?
Honestly, the advice by all of the women in this meeting it's amazing advice. But I think the one thing I want to kind of stress is, have a work-life balance. Don't just let school dominate you and make studying your personality at the end of the day. Spend time with your family, spend time with friends. It's okay to like go out and watch Spider-Man Into the Multiverse and all of those movies, like take care of yourself at the end of the day. If you like making art, make art. Don't just make studying your personality at the end of the day. Studying is only one part of this of your entire life. You're going to finish university. You're going to, do something else at the end of the day. So, explore and really learn about yourself and take care of yourself at the same time. That's it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for pointing that out. It is important to get out and meet other people and not just make studying your life. I think meeting other people and getting out of the classroom is a good way to kind of broaden your horizon too. And last but not least, Amrita.
Yeah, the advice that I want to give to women in science is you're going to miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. So if you want to do something, just do it. You got one life to live, and just overthinking your choices is not going to help, and like it's not going to take you anywhere. So just do it. Take the opportunity. If you're scared to take the first step, you'll realize how much easier it is to just take the second step and go for it. So my advice is just do it. Like if you're scared of doing it, just take a deep breath in, just do it. Like, it's like rip the Band-Aid off. So that's my advice.
Great, thank you. Thank you to all of you women for sharing your advice, giving your stories, like I've already said. I think that this has been a great evening, and I think a lot of our attendees are going to walk away with some great things to think about, as well as some advice going into their post-secondary education. So thank you everybody for joining us. Again, the link to connect with us is in the chat, as well as our email address if you were to have any questions after this event. Thank you all for joining us, and have yourselves a great night. Bye.